Hello and welcome back to the second session on post-colonial literatures in English, the second session on the author Arundhati Roy, the God of Small Things. So, in the earlier section, I have already discussed the author, her background, the setting, the background, the history of Kerala. Why is it such an important? Why does it stand out? What are the unique characteristics of that part of India where the story is set in terms of its history, its geography, its location. We have already also discussed some of the main themes of the novel, and we have discussed the time, the setting, and also the perspective of the through which the novel has been told. So, all that is there in the first lecture. In case you haven't seen the lecture, it would be a good idea to go and have a look, because I discussed some very important elements of the novel in that lecture, and this session is going to make more sense if you have already watched that one. So, today I am just going to discuss, as I said, it is impossible to go chapter by chapter or in a chronological way in this for this story, because the themes overlap and the time is non-linear. So, it is difficult to divide the story. We are not going to even try to do that, doing that. However, I am going to discuss each of these main characters in the Ipe family and the others who are a part of this story, and it is within these characters set in a small village of Aimanam in Kerala that the entire action happens. So, we are going to discuss this, and with the discussion of the characters along with the theme should give you the essence of the novel. So, we are going to discuss the family. Ipe family, as you all know, or if you have read the book you would know, is a Syrian Christian family. They are the Syrian Christian family from Kerala, and they are a higher caste family. So, as we have discussed earlier on also, in terms of religion, in terms of caste system, in terms of class, in terms of language and so on, that India is a very diverse country. It is not a monolith. Even Hinduism or a particular religion like Hinduism, Christianity, nothing is monolithic, nothing is singular. There are different sects, there are different denominations. Hinduism is divided on the axis of caste system, which is so deeply entrenched that the families like the Ipe family, even after their conversion to Christianity or other families conversion to Buddhism and Islam, the caste system is still a very important force in the life of the people. So, caste system just stays. So, even after converting to Christianity, Ipe family follows or observes the system, the caste system. They cannot imagine the daughter of the family having a relationship with an untouchable. Also, being Christian, they are also divided from the rest of the society in terms of religion. So, when Amu marries Baba, who's Hindu, the father of Esther and Rahel, it is, as I said, it is like it's a transgressive. It's not as transgressive as having a relationship with an untouchable, but still, in terms of Syrian Christian sect denomination that they belong to, it is still a transgression. So much so that Rahel and Esther are always seem to be tainted with non-Christian ancestry. So, let us begin with the earlier generation, that is Papachi, whose real name is Biran John Ipe, and who is also referred to as the imperial entomologist. So, the name shows he is a Syrian Christian, right, and he is the little blessed one. If you remember, the Pope at that time had come and put a hand on his, blessed him. And so he has this reputation of being special in terms of religion. But more importantly, I think it is his identity as an entomologist, and this emphasis on his Anglophilic nature by the word imperial entomologist. He has his greatest regret in life is that he discovered a moth, and the moth was never named after him, right? It was never named after him, and that is his greatest regret. so that the moth repeatedly appears. The moth becomes a symbol of regret and fear in the novel, and it is especially associated with Rahel when she feels that her mother would love her a little less. We have this symbolism of the moth spreading its wings on her heart. So that moth, and the symbolism comes from Papachi's story, his regret of not having the moth named after him. Now, the moth in itself, he discovered, he is an entomologist. He is also an imperial entomologist. So, this Anglophilic nature of the entire family, he has a government job, he is a researcher who is in favor. He is this imperial elite, right, who are English educated supporters of the British rule, British colonizers, close to the colonizers, the family. And in that sense, he has a reputation. He has elevated his class by the association with the colonizers. He has English education. He has English education. So, in terms of education, class, caste, he manifests privilege, right? He is upper class. He is highly educated. He is through that he has accumulated wealth, so he is upper class as well, and moreover he is a man. So, in that sense he has that gender privilege as well, but that does not really make him a very likable, in fact that makes him quite a questionable character, because the moth, the one big regret, the symbol of regret, the one big regret of his life, kind of distorts his nature, right? That distorts his nature, and he is jealous, he is cruel to his wife, and that is where we first see the scenes of violence. We see the scenes of he is beating up. When he sees the beating of his wife, we see the glimpse of the gender relations that are acceptable and that are accepted in this in this society of Kerala, the Syrian Christian family. Later on, we see another set of very exploitative relations, or very disbalanced gender relations between Comrade Pillai and his wife Kalyani. He is almost kind of ridicules him, does not really show, always we just see her in one scene, but in that scene Comrade Pillai ridicules her, puts her down, which shows that whatever equality or whatever kind of liberty that Comrade Pillai is fighting for, or is as a left leader of the left party, that kind of equality clearly does not extend into his household, and then it is reinforced when he betrays Velutha. So, it shows that these ideologies, whether it is Marxism or whether it is religion, are just they are just superficial, right, and they are not really able to change the traditions which are unequal, which have latent violence within them. So, that is here the symbol of regret. It symbolizes larger events which are responsible for an individual's nature, right, jealousy in his nature, cruelty in his nature, manifested by the moth, that he does not he feels that he has been cheated of. And the moth, Papachi's moth, takes on different meanings throughout the novel. It's, as I said, it is Rahel's fear when she feels that the mother is going to love her a little less. Later on, when Sophie Mole drowns, she feels the wings of the moth spreading onto her heart. So, it becomes a symbol of regret, fear, and so on, all these negative emotions. Then we have, of course, Mamachi, his wife, the much abused wife. Now, Mamachi is quite talented. She is talented with the violin. She sets up a factory which is quite successful, at least more successful than under her than when her son is running the factory, Paradise Preserves and Pickles. So, she is in that sense quite talented, but in both the cases, whether it is in terms of her husband or her son, she accepts her subservient position. It is almost like she is conditioned to accept the violence that Papachi perpetrates, right, her beating. It is almost like she is conditioned to accept it as a woman's lot. Similarly, when Chaco when Chaco saves her, her affections are transferred from Papachi to Chaco. And although it's not incest like Rahil and Eshta, but the fact that Chaco becomes her hero, and she feels jealous of Margaret Kochama when she visits, and when she gets married to Chaco, and when she visits, she feels jealous of Margaret Kochama, does show that her affection for the son has some problematic aspects, right? It has some problematic aspects. Also, apart from accepting her subservient position due to her gender, when it comes to Papachi and Chaco, and also she never thinks of bequeathing anything or giving anything of or strengthening or empowering her daughter. But apart from that, as I mentioned, another significant thing about Mamachi is her jealousy of Margaret Kochama. And here we see that although everyone is like in awe of Chaco's white wife, right, Chaco's British wife, Mamachi is a little dismissive, and in that dismissal we see the traces of her prejudices, her biases. If you remember, one of them is of course class division, because at some part in the book she dismisses Margaret Kochama and she files her away as a shopkeeper's daughter, right, just a shopkeeper's daughter. So clearly, if racially, if we go by the racial prejudice, racial discrimination, if Margaret holds an upper hand and everyone looks up to Chaco's white wife, then Mamachi clearly looks down upon her in terms of her class, right, the class which she feels that they are from a better class. So we see the different axes on which the divisions work in this novel. And of course, apart from class and gender, another discriminatory axis that she endorses completely is that of caste system. And this is when we see her with Velaya Papan, when Velaya discovers Velutha's relationship with Amu. He is the one, I mean, so strongly is the caste system entrenched in the psyche that he is ready to complain and ready to kill his son for transgressing the boundaries of caste. And he is the one who comes to Mamachi and Margaret Kochama to tell the truth. And despite being Christians, they are completely horrified. Baby Kochama says, how can Amu tolerate the smell of a Paravan? So in a way, it kind of, because this transgression disturbs the order of the society. The society is ordered in terms of class, gender, caste, religion, and this transgression between Amu and Velutha disturbs all these axes. So we see Mamachi in a way preserving, despite being a woman, preserving the discriminatory axis on which the society is organized. However, one must remember that she is the only economically independent and productive woman in this entire series, in this entire novel. She is the one who sets up Paradise Pickles and Preserves. She's and the husband is jealous and beats her up for being successful, and she runs it more successfully than Chaco. But at no point of time does she see it as any kind of empowerment. She remains subservient to Papachi and Chaco, and following her the order of caste, class, religion, and so on. Then of course, the main character, one of the important character, if we can call somebody an antagonist in this novel, it would be Baby Kochama. And Baby Kochama is I would say that she is a product of the society that she has been born and raised up in. If you remember, in her history, in her personal history, she was in love with Father Mulligan, who belongs to Catholicism. She tries her best to overcome that barrier of a religion which kind of prohibits her union or her relationship with the Father Mulligan, but she cannot overcome that, right. So, if we are talking of transgressive love, then this is Father Mulligan and baby Kochama, this affair, not really an affair, this lack of affair, but affection between them is also a transgressive affair. But baby Kochama preserves order, she never really marries, she stays on, it's like, you know, she takes up this role of a pining lover. In the end, we remember, if you remember, she remembers Father Mulligan, and it's as if she has dedicated her entire life to him. But it is also, I think it is also you know, how this love, although transgressive, when it does not manifest, it is not expressed, it turns inside and it kind of distorts her nature, so that not only is she unhappy, wherever she feels that kind of, you know, she feels that there is love, and especially transgressive love, she is against it, she suppresses it. She is the one who is most cruel to Eshta and Rahel till the end, when she manipulates Eshta into betraying Velutha. You know, because they are of tainted blood, and we hear that repeatedly, that she is married. We see in her attitude towards Hindus, we see in her attitude towards communists, and also towards communists, Hindus, and also towards the untouchables, right. So, in a way, just like Mamachi, she is the one who is the one who would like to preserve this order. I mean, she has dedicated her life to this order. She could have transgressed, but she dedicated her life to this, preserving this order. She sacrificed her love, and in a way she does not feel anyone else need to transgress. You know, they can also sacrifice just like she did. The only place where I think she becomes a little, we see her prejudice, you know, we see her biases towards Margaret and Sophie Mole, as if, you know, the awe of the white wife, we see it most in baby Kochama. So, in both cases it is transgressive. Amu transgresses first with Baba and then with having an affair with Velutha, which is unacceptable. But Chaco's racial transgression in having a relationship with Margaret or marrying Margaret is not only acceptable. Baby Kochama is quite proud of their offspring, the Sophie Mole, the beautiful Sophie Mole. So, she is, I would say, she is a product of her society, product of her history, a product of circumstances where a transgressive love which turned inwards kind of distorts her nature into kind of an evil force that in the story. Amu, of course, Eshta and Rahel's mother, very independent thinking and takes charge, marries Baba, but when she realizes that he is abusive, and not only abusive, she's kind of he asks her to have an affair with his white employer. She refuses completely. She divorces him. Then she has she has an affair with Velutha. So very independent minded. Her banter with Chaco, where she teases him about his left ideology, you know, being a comrade, and she knows that Chaco is just playing a role, that Chaco is actually a capitalist running the factory Paradise Pickles, and howsoever much he might ask the employees to call him comrade, in the end he is not going to transgress the boundaries. He is not going to he's not going to he pays a Velutha less because he is an untouchable. So his left Marxist ideologies are very superficial. Margaret Kochama, Chaco's wife, the white wife, remember that her family is very disappointed when she marries Chaco, right, because for them it is unacceptable marrying an Indian. So it's like racially we see the racial prejudice, discrimination, racial prejudice here, but the way she's treated Mamachi, we see the class prejudices also. So she is, in a way, her presence complicates things over here, as does Sophie Mole, a very headstrong young child, independent again, and everyone is looking up to her. She's kind of a favorite and something which Eshta and Rahel are supposed to look up to. Now, Eshta and Rahel, the twins, as I mentioned earlier on, the twins who are separated, and the entire story is, as they're growing up, the incident happens where they betray Veluta, and then it is like a regression, right? They go silent. They are not able to integrate and go on with the grown up life till they meet each other and they have an intercourse. It is like incest, and it is like regression back to the, if there could be, if there could be a regression, if we see their growth in terms of regression, then this could be a regression back to the mother's womb where they were together. So these are the main characters of Ipe family. The other characters, of course, are Comrade Pillai, and I discussed him briefly in this and in the earlier lecture, how Marxism is, although despite its ideals of equality, social equality, sharing of power, is actually not, is corrupted when it comes into, or when it enters this extremely divided society. Veluta, of course, is the victim of all, in terms of, he's the most victimized, he's a scapegoat for everyone, the most dispossessed and vulnerable in terms of class, caste, education. So although he's intelligent, the way society is, the way social structure is, it is impossible to grow, right? It is impossible to escape the clutches of the caste system and grow. Vilaya Papin, such a subject of caste system, he has endorsed, he has imbibed, he is conditioned so that he's ready to kill his own son rather than transgressing the boundaries of the caste system, which keep him in his position, in his very dismal position. Kochama is Veluta's brother, again disabled. So we see various forms of dispossession, various forms of vulnerability that Veluta's family embodies, and how they are vulnerable to each one of them is vulnerable to violence, that is the latent violence in the system. Kochumaria is baby Kochama's companion. Here again, not really transgressing the system, preserving the order along with baby Kochama, again the order which keeps her a servant, although however much talented or however much work she might do, she would always remain a servant. And also I think it was quite fascinating, when we see them in 1993, baby Kochama and Kochumaria, watching all these English shows on television. It's almost like, there is consumerism, there are these Western trends, but the society has not resolved these issues which are simmering just beneath the surface. And of course, Inspector Thomas Matthew, who threatens Amu, almost like, treating her like a sexual object later on. And why does he do that? To preserve order. He's kind of scaring away Amu when she tries to save Veluta, or when she tries to confess that they had an affair, because the police has killed Veluta at the behest of baby Kochama, who said that Veluta forced himself on Amu. So now, to preserve order again, Thomas Matthew threatens Amu, and it is very Veluta becomes a convenient scapegoat for everyone. So now I just want to go over some of the important quotes which summarize the theme of this novel. One of this is there and there it was again, and here we are talking about Marxism, another religion turned against itself, another edifice constructed by human mind, decimated by human nature. Later on, Marxism had was simply a substitute for Christianity, and she goes on. So, Christianity and Marxism as two grand narratives of the last 2 centuries, and here they are not able to. Both of them tell the same story of false promises. Marxism and Christianity, there is no salvation, there is no equal utopian society, as we see in this story. The promise they hold out of an equal society, of a society uncorrupted by greed and human nature, so it's just not possible. So these are ideals constructed by human mind, decimated by human nature. So it is the post-colonial society of Christianity, Marxism, two ideologies imposed from outside on this colonized, caste-ridden, divided by religion, this kind of society of India. They do not really solve any problems or answer to any questions, any dilemmas of this society. And of course, we have discussed this in detail in the first lecture of the first session on this book, the love laws, and I think that is a central theme of this book. Who should be loved and how much, and the entire story turns on transgressive relationship, and the other side is that transgression, how history negotiates its terms and collects its dues from those who break its laws, right? So Amu and Velutha break the laws. The history is going to collect its due, and history collects its due in the form of their deaths, right? How impossible it is to escape the laws of love that structure, that hold everyone in place in this society. I want to discuss this one particular quote, and this is when Eshta is manipulated by baby Kochama, and he betrays Velutha. He betrays Velutha here, and what the author is taking pains to point out that they had been given a choice, right? It's not as if it's just a 7-year-old manipulated by baby Kochama. Even at 7-year-old, they knew that they had been given a choice and how quick they had been in choosing it, right? So in that sense, the two of them are also complicit in Velutha's death and his ignominy, his bad name, because they chose to save Amu, save us, save our mother. So even as 7-year-olds, they are complicit, and that, I think, is a source of their guilt, lifelong guilt behind Ishta's silence and Rahil's vacuousness when she gets married, her aimlessness throughout the life. That guilt is behind all that. And this is when Rahil is married to the American, right? She is married to the American, and he seems there is a part of her that he cannot reach. So he was exasperated because he didn't know what that look meant. He put it somewhere between indifference and despair. He didn't know that in some places, like the country that Rahil came from, various kinds of despair competed for primacy, and that personal despair could never be desperate enough, right? Personal despair is dismissed in the currents of history, in the currents of big things like history, politics. Personal despair is just sidelined. It's never desperate enough. In this struggle for order, struggle for authority, an individual and his despair does not matter. That something had happened when personal turmoil dropped by at the wayside shrine of the vast, violent, circling, driving, ridiculous, insane, unfeasible public turmoil of a nation. So her personal turmoil, her personal suffering and guilt drops by the wayside shrine of the big things that are happening to the nation. The big god howled like the hot wind and demanded obeisance. The small god, cozy and contained, private and limited, came away cauterized, laughing numbly at his own temerity. Inured by the confirmation of his own inconsequence, he became resilient and truly indifferent. Nothing mattered much, nothing much mattered, and the less it mattered, the less it mattered. It was never important enough because the worst things had happened. In the country that she came from, poised forever between terror of war and the horror of peace, worse things kept happening. Right? Whatever her personal suffering, whatever her personal guilt, whatever their personal tragedies are, they are sidelined by bigger things, right? So that nothing matters, right? Their personal tragedies do not matter. Their personal suffering does not matter. So it is, so the God, small God laughs, personal despair, personal suffering lives on. It becomes guilt, it becomes personal guilt, it becomes personal despair, and it lives on in individuals. Thank you.